So last week, I celebrated my 60th birthday, and I had another celebration because I have exercised continuously for 55 years. It was sort of like a double celebration, one for turning 60, but also this recognition that I've built and maintained an exercise, a fitness, and a movement practice for 55 years, which is quite incredible. Because who would have thought when I was that 5-year-old girl in Singlegate Primary School running my very first egg and spoon race, that was the catalyst for me to develop this love of moving my body over 55 years. I'm still marveling at that. So in today's show, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select 5 insights I'd love to share with you with regards to what the power of movement and exercise has done for my life. But before I do any of that, if you're one of my regulars, welcome back. Great to see you here. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Bybreen Samuels, and I help baby boomers reinvent themselves psychologically, practically, and technically so they can thrive in their third act of life. So here we are, 60 years old, and I'm looking back on 55 years of movement. That there's only been about 2 periods in my life, one for about 9 months and one for about 3 or 4 months that I didn't involve exercise in one form or another. But there are some kind of insights that I've pulled out of that journey. And the first one I want to share with you is to develop the hero's mindset. So to become a hero in your own life, it's more about taking your eye off other people, but actually tapping into this innate wisdom that we have, that we need to break through our resistances on some level or our limitations and think about and then marvel in the idea, I wonder what I could achieve if I put my mind, my body, my soul, my spirit, and my energy towards a particular goal. So why the hero's mindset? Because the hero is inviting you, is it calling all of us to have more self-belief and the courage to navigate the challenges that no doubt will arise, whether it's a physical challenge you're taking on in terms of exercise or an intellectual challenge, it really doesn't matter. It is about your capacity and your ability to believe in yourself and to commit to a journey. Now, along this journey, there will be obstacles. And it's the invitation to see these obstacles just as stepping stones that are taking you from this the beginner's mindset, into the hero. Because once you begin to draw on this innate hero that lies within you, that's sort of like the catalyst to keep you moving forward. Very powerful transformation, that the more of us that adopt this hero identity and persona. Now, when I was 5 years old in Singlegate School, I wouldn't have articulated it like that. I didn't see myself as a hero. What I did see myself as, even though it was an egg and spoon race, and I'm blind as a bat, I had on my pink National Health glasses. And I had this egg and I had this spoon, and I'm not very good with upper body and lower body coordination when it comes to sport. So invariably, I dropped the egg, but I wasn't troubled with that. I just sprinted. And that was the first indication. It was like, wow, I'm fast, I was quick, and I loved it. And so that was the catalyst for me. And, as I said, I've kind of built it into my life over the last 55 years. Now, the wonderful mythologist, Joseph Campbell, who wrote one of the seminal books, A Hero with a Thousand Faces, describes the hero and the hero's journey, the hero's mindset. And it's about the ordinary person stepping into an extraordinary world, of the world of the superpowers and the supernatural, into this world of wonderment. And as a hero, you're called. There's a call to action, one way or another. For me, it was the egg and spoon race. For you, it might be something completely different. But you're called forward into this new life, a new awakening. Now, you may or may not have the skills, but at this point, you're unaware as to the skills that you have and what you could develop. Now, along the journey, you may meet a challenge, invariably there is. And before you meet the challenge, you could actually meet a mentor, and the mentor is dropping words of wisdom to guide you on the journey. And so when you meet the obstacle, the idea is to pay attention to what the mentor has shown you and taught you. And then, you know, at the end of that, you get the elixir, you get your achievement. Now, if you ignore what your mentor has told you, then it could be a case of trial and error. But nonetheless, this whole idea of you start at one point and then you move right through to your end goal. And it's like, wow, you know, I've done it. And I can't believe it's a sense of marvel. And the more that you can tap into your hero's journey, the hero persona really does pull you forward into your own journey of magnificence. So that's the first one, adopting this hero's mindset. Now, for me, when I was in my mid to late teens, and so this would have been late 1970s into the early 80s, I was part of my friendship group, or one of my big friendship groups at the time. We were all really fit and we were all into martial arts and, you know, a whole range of football. I wasn't into football, but martial arts certainly. And so beyond my childhood activities, which was really about athletics and sprinting and long jumping and high jumping and hockey and netball, you know, those types of activities, then into my mid-teens and through to my late teens was the martial arts era. And in the late 70s, early 80s, we loved going to Friday night, late night, to watch Bruce Lee and Enter the Dragon and all those other wonderful films at the time. And so therefore there was this sense of wizardry. Wow, marveling at somebody like Bruce Lee and what he could achieve, what he could do with his body, the, you know, the freedom and the flexibility of, you know, who he was. We marveled at, and we all used to practice, you know, the kicks and the blocks and the carters and all of that. And then I got knocked out of the game because I got injured. But nonetheless, there were some people from within that group that did go on to really achieve the high status of martial arts. And so there was this sense, the call to action was, you know, here's a mentor in the form of Bruce Lee, and marveling over what he could do with his body. And then us all thinking, what could we do with our body? And so this is the hero's call, the hero's mindset, and the hero's journey. So the second thing is about setting achievable goals. Now, let's say, for example, you're somebody who has never exercised or exercised way back in the day. You know, you could have been really into sports during, you know, school, college, university, if you did go to university, or in your early 20s. And then life took over as it does. And you kind of lost the will, the interest to maintain your exercise practice. But actually you are nursing this kind of secret desire to, you know, develop an exercise practice again, but you're overwhelmed, you're demotivated, you're unsure as to what is it that you need to do. Where would you start, having not exercised for 25, 30 years? Do you go back to what you used to do? Or if you've never exercised, where do you actually start? Now, what can help you here is about setting and achieving goals. Now, the idea here is that if you understand your rationale, your why is it that you want to step into this new era of exercise? And whatever exercise or fitness routine you choose, what is it that you're hoping to get from this particular exercise routine? And I think the more that you can understand your rationale and your why for doing something, will keep you motivated. It will turn those unarticulated dreams, or the ones you haven't shared with anybody, into a reality. So here, understanding your why will help you set goals. So an example from my life is in my late 40s, I really dove into the world of distance running. Now, some of my idols around, you know, heroes, idols around exercise are like Paula Radcliffe. You know, she set the marathon record and held it for 16 years. So from 2003 through to 2019, her record was 2 hours, 15 minutes and 25 seconds. which is incredible because it was only in 2019 that Bridget Kosgei took the crown from Paula. But you know, what a great feat that she achieved. So Paula's one of my idols, then Tirunesh Dibaba, another great sort of middle distance, and then went on to do some marathons as well. And then who can forget the phenomenal Eliud Kipchoge when he took on the Ineos sub-2 marathon. So they are some of my idols when it comes to you know, fitness and what have you. And so when I stepped into distance running, my why was around, well, I've done sprints, I've done, you know, shorter forms of exercise. I wonder who I need to become in order to take on marathon running. I'd never tried it before, you know, it was completely new to me. And I loved it. You know, the switch from having built up a base of exercise and then to take on distance run, there was a freedom. I absolutely loved running, you know, running with headphones and music or running without headphones and music, and just really getting into the rhythm and the cadence. What does my body sound like? What does my body feel like as I'm, you know, running hundreds of miles in order to run a marathon? So the sense of setting the goal, understanding why you want to achieve that goal. And for me, it was about who do I need to become, but what would an endurance type of exercise, how would that feel on my body? And I wanted to explore it. So that's the second one, setting and achieving your goals and understanding your why. Then we have consistency. Consistency through the ages. Now, yes, I can look back over 5.5 decades and look back and think, well, I've consistently moved my body. So one, a base of exercise I've always had is walking, because I don't drive. I'm a committed non-driver. I've never really been interested in driving, tried it twice, failed it twice on the same thing. Anyway, wasn't for me. But I walk everywhere. And so that has been like a low level activity that has just, you know, I've always done it. And so the consistency through the ages is about recognizing at what stage you are, what age you are. So, you know, in my teens, there was high metabolism, there was flexibility, taking on so many different forms of exercise. And I've given you an indication of what I did in my earlier years. And then through my 20s and 30s, that would have taken me, you know, the 80s and 90s. Well, it was the era of routines and the great Jane Fonda and aerobics. And so, you know, she led the generation of us, you know, hundreds of thousands, millions of us to get into aerobics and cardiovascular exercises. And it was fabulous, you know, legs, bums and tums. And all those, you know, using the full body, the range of motion that exists within our body. So I was very much into that. So there was a consistency that I did that with, and that built on top of, it's like I was talent stacking my body in a sense, because I started as a child and I've always done it. And so the different types of exercises just stack one on top of the other. And what it has given me is muscle memory. And then following the Jane Fonda era, there was the Kalinetics era, which I absolutely loved. And that was like the other side of what Jane presented. And Kalinetics was led by a woman called Callan Pinkney. And this was about toning the body using the large muscle groups, but in very discreet and delicate and nuanced ways. And this was about the elongation of the body, lengthening the muscles, the ability to stretch. And it was fabulous. I was like the Kalinetics queen, or so I like to think I was. So here again, it was the consistency of these exercises that took me through my 20s and 30s, and then there were step classes, and then there was biking. I can't remember what was the kind of biking that we used to do. It was really high impact. And then I started to introduce elements within the gym. So in my 30s, I would say that was my fittest, absolute fittest decade. And I was like an all-rounder. So, you know, I ran a little bit, I swam, I got into swimming, I kickboxed, I did step classes, I walked everywhere. You know, I just had this kind of surround sound base, and I was really, really, really fit. And so it's about recognizing that, you know, as you're aging through your 30s and 40s, you know, the muscle mass begins to change and you begin to lose that. And so therefore it's even more of a conscious effort in terms of, you know, maintaining this base of exercise. And then when I got into my 40s, this was about mindfulness. This was the mindfulness season. And the reason being was because literally for my 40th birthday, what I gifted myself with was to undertake a spiritual practice. And I became a Soka Gakkai Buddhist. And I had a 12-year practice, and I loved my practice. I don't practice anymore. But what it gave me was this sense of self-discipline, even more so, but from a spiritual point of view. It's about self-mastery, which kind of tied in beautifully with the pattern and the practice of movement. And so when I became a Buddhist at 40, I then began to connect the two far more deeply in terms of being mindful of what was literally going on in my mind, and, you know, thinking of my thoughts, observing my thoughts, slowing myself down, becoming conscious of my thoughts, becoming conscious of my movements. And so it was a natural marrying of the two together. So the mindfulness practice was brilliant from that point of view. And as a Buddhist, there was a type of long form meditation we used to do, and it's called a tozo. And tozos are where you have like an extended, like 7 hours of sitting in front of the Gohonzon. It's you, your breath, the sound of your chant, your mind, and dealing with what's going on in your mind. And it was a wonderful way to bring about the mind, body, spirit connection. So it was a wonderful way to fuse into my exercise practice. So that helped me with the consistency of movement practice. And then towards my late 40s, that's when I got into distance running, as I said. And so that was the era around building up consistency. So over the decades, over the years, I've talent stacked my body to create this memory within the muscles. So mindfulness. And there's a Harvard social psychologist called Dr. Ellen Langer, and she talks about the power of mindfulness and why it is so important, particularly as we age, because she says that mindfulness actually shapes the way that we age. And if it's shaping the way that we age, we know it's helping us to gain control over ourselves, reduce stress, bring about cognitive flexibility, and just this general sense of well-being. And all of this contributes to successful aging. So the more that you're able to integrate mindfulness into your daily life, however you do it, you don't have to sit in front of the Gohonzon and chant for 7 hours. You could go for a walk in nature. So you've got this wonderful combination of movement, natural movement in a beautiful setting. It's in nature, and you're being more conscious in terms of your thoughts, or you're beginning to manage your thoughts in a particular way. So you're looking at your thoughts as well as how you're connecting that to your body. So there we have 4 of them. And the 5th one is really about the wisdom that I've gained having moved my body, exercise for 55 years. And it's lovely because looking back, I obviously had an intrinsic sense of faith in transformation at 5 years old, at 10, 15, even when I was in my 20s. It wasn't so much faith, I just really got into it and I loved it. But actually on reflection, it's about the faith in transformation of, you know, the hero has faith that if there's this dedication and discipline, you know, I can't leave out discipline because it's a wonderful attribute that you get from exercising. You're disciplined, you're focused, you're able to pull in your energy in a particular way. You've got this goal that's over in the distance. You're trying to pay attention to it, and you get there eventually. There's this myth, and it's from the Bhagavad Gita. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But it's the myth about Prince Arjuna and the god Krishna. And so they're in conversation, and it's about, encouraging Arjuna to go into battle. And Arjuna is really resistant, he's hesitant, he's uncomfortable, he doesn't want to rise to the challenge. And Krishna says to him, if you want to be a hero, then it is about taking on the responsibility of stepping into the courage to take on the things you don't want to take on. But by taking them on, you get a deeper, more profound, nuanced sense of, there's a bigger life than you. And this ties in with exercise, because having the faith to take on and trust your body, to trust this innate wisdom, to become the hero, it's this wonderful invitation for us to take on the responsibility to take care of our bodies. It's the only one that we know of in this lifetime. And so the myth is about how do we actively, and it can be incrementally, it can be bit by bit, it doesn't have to be this big thing, incremental steps where we kind of owe it to our own lives and our own body to take on the responsibility to develop ourselves physically, which can help us age into longevity. And so the faith in transformation, as you take on a physical practice, a movement practice, an exercise practice, you're beginning to see in tiny ways and then in more obvious ways, the dedication and the discipline leads to this wonderful physical transformation. Also, it's about energy, the energy that exercise gives you. You emit it, you show it, there's vitality. I move through the world. I'm a very positive person. I'm not somebody that's moody, or it's very, very rare. I can't even think about the time when I've been really moody. I'm not that sort of person. But exercise and having this base has really kind of continued to top up my kind of energy pot, so that I always remain, in a high state with vitality. I'm human, of course I am, and there's times I get down, but I'm more up than I am down. So having the energy, exercise helps you sustain and build upon your energy. Mindfulness, I've also touched upon, and then the wisdom just of experience. So with 55 years of exercise, I'm looking back at dedication and discipline, and through just having done it consistently for 55 years, I have a deep understanding of how my body works, what it likes, what it doesn't like, what I need to let go of. It's a wisdom that's been built up over the decades. It's like, my beloved running, when I fell in my last marathon and damaged my knee, and I had to channel my kind of inner Paula Radcliffe to get me through and to cross the finish line, which I did eventually. And I was in my late 40s, on the cusp of 50. And although I healed from it, my body never kind of got back into the rhythm of running. And, I subsequently read that running is really aggressive on the joints as the more that you age. And so, the wisdom of understanding what my body needs, what it requires, has been a wonderful gift that I've given myself. And wherever you are on your journey, to step onto your journey, you're already in the journey, you're thinking about the journey. I wish for you to develop an exercise practice that's meaningful to you, that can work for you. And, as boomers on the cusp of 60 or into our 60s and beyond, low impact exercises that you may want to build in are walking. Fantastic exercise. I would actively encourage you to start there. Cycling. It's not my favorite sport, but it might be yours. So cycling, it's low impact and it's really great, for the overall workout. And then swimming. So as I've just stepped into my 6th decade, and the goal that I have for my 60th year, hopefully, fingers crossed, certainly into my early 60s, my goal is to swim 5K. So I know what it is to have land endurance in terms of a marathon. And I'm really inspired. What pulled me forward was actually Richard Branson, He's, I think, in his 70s now. And he swims 5K every day. And I find that really inspiring, because here he is on the cusp of 70 and he swims 5K. And so I know what it is to take myself on to do marathons, but I've never taken myself on to swim a 5K. The furthest I've swum is about 38 lengths, so 2 lengths short of my first 1K, but hey, there's still time for me to achieve that. So I'd love to hear what your journey is with exercise. Where are you on the journey? Are you desiring to get back into it, or to even start it? Have you started, given up, or you want to try something else? There are so many different forms of exercise out there in the world for you to choose from. So I'd love to hear where you are on your journey. Put your comments in the comment box below. And please like and share and subscribe to my channel, and invite other baby boomers to join us here every Sunday at 3:30 GMT. Stay well, and I'll see you again next week. And good luck contemplating your movement journey. Bye-bye.